org. Now, while there are plenty of great trails to hike in Mississippi, there aren't many mountains to climb. You may not find that to do here, at least not one like Mount Everest. And our guest today, Mr. Adam Hodges of Meridian, he set out to conquer the mountain, all for a good cause, and he's here to share a little more about it. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Rebecca.
This is exciting. So I've been following your story for a while now, because you have been back and sort of decompressed, I think, and collected your thoughts and all to sort of come share with us your journey. So take us back, though, further. When did you get inspired, or maybe what I should ask, what inspired you to want to climb Mount Everest?
It's been a journey that's lasted over 20 years. I started climbing back in the 90s, went out and climbed Mount Rainier, and then climbed some other mountains in that area, and just kind of gradually climbed higher and higher mountains. And over the years, I was able to get to Denali in Alaska and summit successfully, and then Aconcagua in Argentina, and then following that, I went to Russia and climbed Mount Elbrus. So that was 3 of the 7 summits.
So did you start out kind of small? I would think, oh, let's just go for a hike, and then you're like, let's climb my first mountain. Or did you start out 20 years ago with maybe this idea of one day I'll conquer Mount Everest? Or did that sort of just come with time as you just sort of fell in love with mountain climbing a little more each time?
It was a little bit of both. I think a lot of young boys and girls could dream of something like climbing Mount Everest.
No, I have never.
You haven't?
I've dreamed a lot of crazy things, but yes, I get what you're saying.
But you think it's Mount Everest. It's not, it's somewhere in the distance, probably a dream. And it takes climbing the smaller mountains to begin to believe that you can climb Mount Everest. So your confidence builds, your knowledge and your abilities build over time, and that's kind of what I've experienced. As I was successful in higher and higher, more difficult mountains, I started to think about Mount Everest.
And I would assume as you move to these higher mountains, or I guess taller mountains, whichever way you say it, higher summits, the community gets a little smaller. So you start to actually meet people who have done it, or sort of also thinking about it, right? Because like as the pool goes larger to even, smaller, then you start to meet people who may have actually done it or think that it's not a crazy idea, that starts to feed into you that you can do this, right? And then you get that sense of encouragement or that inspiration you never knew existed. Does that happen too?
That's right. You before you get involved with that community, you tend to think that these are people that are beyond what you are. You think they have to be something more than I am, but as you climb and you get to know the other climbers, you see that they're just like you. They're motivated people willing to put in the work, take the risk, and accept the challenge. And you begin to relate and identify yourself as, you're just like they are. And on Denali, the strongest climber on Denali, that was in 2008, was a stewardess from Great Britain. And she was the only female on a very strong expedition. And we both summited Denali that year, and then like a year or two later, she summited Everest. And you start thinking to yourself, well, she did it. She's just like I am, maybe a little bit stronger, but she's just like I am. So this is something I believe I can do.
And it's definitely not something that you just wake up one day and go, okay, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. It's something you have to put a lot of thought process into, a lot of training, a lot of intentionality, I would assume, to even get to there. I know it's not like a cheap expedition either to do that. So you had to have a bigger motivator, Adam, and looking at all of the titles that you have, obviously the fitness part probably came natural. You're the manager there of Anderson's Health and Fitness Center. You have the Rock City Boxing, which I know we'll get into. And then, but through that, you founded the Ascent For The Cure. So where did the bigger inspiration for going out for something as big as Mount Everest come from?
It just... I believe it's a God thing that these things happen together. But we started Rock Steady Boxing 2 years ago there at our gym, and up until that point, I had not had much interaction with people that suffer from Parkinson's disease. I knew a couple, but I didn't know a lot about the disease. And a local businessman approached me one day, and he had been driving to Jackson, I think 3 times a week to attend the Rock Steady program they have here. And he just asked me, what do I think about getting the program started in Meridian? And we already had a boxing gym set up, and I thought it was a great idea. So I had to do some training. We had to do some preparation to bring the class there. But we did mainly on his suggestion, and it just took off. From the time we started it, I would say 6 months later, we had 25 people in the program.
Wow.
And that's without really going out and searching too hard for people to join.
Is there something about the sport of boxing or the movements of boxing? I know they're not necessarily competing against each other in terms that's helpful for Parkinson's disease.
It is. It's I think a lot about why this program's so effective, and I think probably the most important part of it is the social aspect, the hope that it creates, and the community that it provides. And that's a big part of fighting Parkinson's. A lot of times they'll kind of withdraw, and there's a lot of depression that comes along with it and isolation. So what I see is it's just a great opportunity for people to be with people that are going through the same disease and the same challenges, and to be loved. So we started the program. Social aspect is huge, and yes, Rocksteady Boxing, just the nature of boxing, how you're constantly thinking about right and left footwork or right and left punches. It's been proven to help with Parkinson's disease. And Rocksteady, the affiliate headquarters is in Indianapolis, and they've grown they're worldwide now. There's probably 500 or 600 locations around the world, helping thousands and thousands of athletes. We call them athletes because they are.
Yeah. If you can box, you're an athlete for sure. And watching some of the videos over there, it's Ascent For The Cure, and then also just on the YouTube channel for what inspired your mission to try to climb or conquer Mount Everest, you see them. I mean, they are punching, they are at it, they are getting a workout in, they're enjoying it. You mentioned 25, though. That does seem like a lot in a short amount of time. Is Parkinson's disease that common in the Meridian or Mississippi area, or are they driving from other places to come and work out?
It's that common in a small town like Meridian, so it makes you really think about nationwide and worldwide. I think there are 1 million people suffering from Parkinson's in the United States and 12 million worldwide. So, and it's a tough disease to have to battle, and we see it, and it can present itself in so many different ways, balance, tremors, some cognitive issues, posture, emotional things. It's just a really tough disease to battle.
Are there other Rocksteady Boxing centers in Mississippi? I know you have the one there at Anderson's in Meridian. Are there any other in our state?
There are, and they're growing. There's a really nice one here at First Baptist Church, and it's a large operation. They're doing things the right way. I can't tell you how many in Mississippi, but they are growing. I've been approached by someone from the Philadelphia area outside of Meridian, and they're starting one. And so, people are starting to see how effective this is, and it's starting to grow.
Well, I hope if you're listening to Good Things and you have a loved one who may be living with Parkinson's disease, especially if you're in the Meridian area, man, look up Adam. But if you're not, I mean, I think this would be something, if there's not one in your local community, that you could see what does it take to sort of get it, because it's definitely 25 came out in a very short period of time. To me, that tells you're up to something good there, Adam. Okay, so from that, you founded Ascent For The Cure. Is that correct?
I did.
So was that is just a way to sort of help bring awareness for the people you were helping with the Rocksteady Boxing?
It is. We 2 years ago, we had started Rocksteady Boxing, and it was growing, and not only growing, but I was seeing how it was helping everyone. Everyone that joined the program was improving. And then an old climbing buddy of me kind of reached out and said he was going to Everest. And so they kind of happened at the same time. And I just thought about Everest, and Everest is it's a large financial commitment. Right. It's a lot of time, 2 months away from home and away from your job and your family. So to me, to just go and do Everest, just to do Everest on my own behalf is not enough. It's not worth it. But it just began to come to me that people are really interested in mountain climbing and the experience.
Because y'all are crazy.
Yeah, because we're crazy. And so are CrossFitters, by the way.
We're crazy, for sure.
But yeah, I just felt like with the interest we could generate from climbing, we could also bring awareness and do some fundraising for Parkinson's.
Well, we're going to find out more about Adam Hodges' summit to the top of Mount Everest and all the things in between. Welcome back to Good Things. We want to remind you there is an adventure in Mississippi that will be awaiting you. Not mountain climbing, but you can hike it to some capacity. Go to visitmississippi.org to find out more. We're finding out more about Adam Hodges' quest to conquer Mount Everest, all for raising awareness for Parkinson's disease, which he does every day as the manager of Anderson's Health and Fitness Center there in Meridian with Rocksteady Boxing. But he did this through Ascent For The Cure. So I got to just, like, a little bit of like when your buddy calls and says, hey, you want to climb Mount Everest, what are the next steps? I mean, it's one thing to say, yes, I want to do this, but it's another thing to start putting, I guess, pen to paper and figuring out equipment, training, time schedules, all that, and also having the sort of philanthropy part to it. So walk us through maybe the timeline to even that all went through all of it.
You know, it's interesting because initially this happened a year before COVID hit. So I'm preparing, and it's all those things. It's so much preparation, it's unreal, but I'm preparing for a year, and we get right up to time to go to Everest, and COVID hits, and so it's off. And
oh man,
yeah. So then we wait another year, and we're watching everything that's going on in the world, and it was really looking like it wasn't going to happen again this year. And kind of from a preparation standpoint, I kind of turned it off a little. You know,
I was just going to ask, because you think of the Olympics, they had to stay at peak performance for another year. I mean, yeah. I know it's maybe not exactly the same, but it kind of is. So, I mean, what type of preparedness did you have to sort of extend for another year?
Yeah, so the physical training is pretty intense. You know, as I mentioned, I love to do CrossFit, and it keeps me in pretty good shape. But to prepare for something like Everest, you need long endurance type workouts. So I do a lot of long runs, and I started incorporating a weight vest that I'd run in, a 20-pound weight vest, and
because you have to carry all your stuff.
Yeah, and you just got to get used to. You got to get used to the grind of climbing, and the only way to do that is to have workouts that are a grind. And so I started working out. I'd work out like an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, really intense, you know, almost not stopping the entire time. And then I may take the next day off and rest. And that's how climbing is. You know, you'll have a really tough day on the mountain, and then you might rest for 3 days. So I tried to train in a way that I knew the mountain was going to be. And then the preparation, I needed all kinds of special gear. You have to have a climbing suit, climbing boots, things that you don't necessarily have to have on other mountains, you need on Everest. You know, it requires the best of gear. And then
that is not something you want to go get your, just a generic brand.
No.
Just save a couple $100 here or there when you're fixing to climb Mount Everest. You need to make sure you can trust your equipment. Yeah.
And then trying to short things up at work and at home, and to be gone 2 months is just pretty tough. So, first year it was delayed. The second year, I've turned it off a little. I had COVID the August after COVID surfaced in 2020, and got pretty sick from it, and was able to come back to work and doing activities of daily living, but to get back to a really high level of training was extremely difficult.
Because that's a lung. I mean, that's your lungs that you need.
It's lungs, it's joints, it's energy systems. It's just there's a lot going on there if you have a severe case of it, and I did. And so fought my way through COVID, started feeling good again, but still had a lot of question marks. Have I fully recovered from COVID? Is anything going to show up when I get to 20,000 feet on Mount Everest? So that was a concern. And I worried about the world stage and what COVID was going to be doing. And sure enough, it was a legitimate worry.
Because remind us, for those listening to Good Things, we know Mount Everest. I mean, that is just an iconic name, but we may not be able to find it on a map. So where is it? It's
in Asia, and it's on the border of Tibet and Nepal.
So we're not talking about, just up in the Rockies, or, you're flying, you're now having to fly internationally, different language, all of this during a pandemic.
COVID. Yes.
Yeah. That adds a complete new layer of stress.
It's super challenging. I think I've received the negative COVID test about 7 times now through my travels. But just, everywhere you go, you have to produce this COVID test. It can only be 2 days old, so you're constantly getting it renewed. And travel was challenging. I mean, it was very challenging to get over there, and even more so to get back. And we'll talk about that as we get
so let's talk about getting there. Okay, so you got the green light when you finally were going to get the chance to go. What happens next? You go to base camp, right? I feel like those are also terms that we all are at least a little bit aware of. So is that where, once you make it across the pond, you arrive at base camp with all of your gear and all your things?
Pretty much. I flew to Houston, and from Houston to Dubai, from Dubai to Kathmandu, and that took me a couple of days to get there. And then you get to Kathmandu and it's a pretty interesting third world city. There was a lot going on there when I got there. But we spent a few days there just meeting the expedition members and doing some last minute preparations. And then you fly from Kathmandu to probably one of the world's most dangerous airports, which is a very tiny airstrip up high on the mountain in a town called Lukla. So it's pretty famous for the danger.
You have to land on a mountain?
You basically land on the side of a mountain.
I would be sedated. I would have to be highly sedated before you ever got me into the airplane. Or I would hate to be the one that had to land it. I would never be the one that has to land it. Let's put it that way.
They're so good at what they do, and the planes are equipped. But going in, you're landing uphill, and you've got mountains behind you, so there are no do-overs. It's not like the pilot can miss the airstrip and pull up and come back around. They have to land it when they come in. But so going in, he lands it uphill. And from there, from Lukla, it's a 10-day trek to base camp. So 10 days of trekking in to get to base camp from there.
So you're committed. I mean, if you make it to base camp, you are already in the mindset that, I'm doing this. It's not like, you wait in a 90-minute line there at Disney and back out of the roller coaster. I mean, if you make it to base camp for Mount Everest, it's like, okay, I mean, there's no turning back now. I'm sure it's definitely a mindset of everybody in your team. Speaking of your team, it's not just you going. Who all is going up the summit with you?
We had about 30 members in our expedition, and I climbed. Craig Van Hoy is my climbing buddy. He's a professional mountain guide, and he's climbed a lot of the highest mountains in the world. So I climbed with him directly, but within a larger expedition from Nepal, Kai-2 expeditions. They're located there in Nepal, and they hire local Sherpas from the Everest region to support the climb. Some of them climb with you. Some of them just perform a supporting role, like managing base camp and things like that. And then beyond that, there were 10 Chinese climbers in our expedition, which was very interesting, and 2 guys from Finland and 1 guy from Denmark. So it was a very diverse group of people that were climbing together. So yeah, the 10 days to base camp is enjoyable. Every now and then you get a glimpse of a beautiful mountain, and eventually you get to see Everest for the first time. And you go over a lot of suspension bridges, which are just bridges way up in the air, held up by cables. And
I feel like you have to go through all of these mental tests before the universe is even like, okay, you are fit for even giving this a try, because I would have been back. You say suspension cables, having to cross up in the air, like there's no whatever. I mean, where does this non-fear of heights come from for you, Adam? Because this whole thing has me in knots, and I'm not even the one who went or even is thinking about going.
I think I have a fear of heights. It's just, it's manageable. And from the time I was a little boy, I climbed trees and I jumped off towers into water. And we have a swimming place, Walkaway Springs. I don't know if you've heard of it, but when I was growing up, they had a 70-foot tower that you could climb up and jump off of. And of course I did it. I just, but I'll tell you, on Everest, I had real fear. There were times when I felt fear, and I had the adrenaline rush that comes with that. So I don't think for a minute that I don't fear things, because I do.
All right, so now I have to know, like when everything comes together, you've got your team of 30, your Sherpa, you got all your things, and it's like you wake up, I assume you wake up, you've got coffee, and you're like, today is the day that I step one step forward up the mountain for Mount Everest. I mean, is there like someone there that's at like a Disney ride that's like next line in, like to like usher you up the mountain? I mean, is it kind of like a trail there, or what's that like, going that first threshold knowing, okay, we're going up the mountain?
So you trek in as a group, and it's pretty leisurely and pretty fun, and not overly hard. You want to take a break?
Yeah, we're going to take a break, and we'll get back with Adam Hodges, who went on his quest to conquer Mount Everest. We'll find out how it ended. We're learning more about climbing Mount Everest, as many of you may want to do that. I don't know. It may be on your bucket list. It was on our guest, who is Adam Hodges of Meridian. He did set out to conquer the mountain for a good cause. This goes back to the fact that he founded Ascent For The Cure, right? And that's what gave you to fight against Parkinson's disease, and that is what gave you that extra oomph to sort of get through. Because I'm sure, Adam, you said it got delayed a year, maybe 2 years because of COVID and the pandemic before you ever even made it. April or May of this past year or last year. I'm trying to think of in my own calendar in my head. This past April or May. So I'm sure, knowing that you had those that were living with Parkinsons back at the Rocksteady boxing, was one of the reasons you just stuck through it, right? I mean, stuck through the mental of even getting there.
Yeah, that's right. And I could, I knew how excited they were for me and how excited they were to be a part of this. So, yeah, that was definitely a motivating factor for me.
And you got there. You trekked in 10 days, and then you got to base camp, and then you got the fast pass to actually start going up the mountain. What is that like? What is the feeling like, the first couple of steps, knowing I've started this journey? And about how long did you sort of think that it should take you to get to the top? I mean, at least a timeline.
Well, it can take, you're there 2 months, and all but about a week of that, you're on the mountain and you're climbing or resting, recovering. So, yeah, but, when you climb Mount Everest, it gets real when you leave base camp, headed up the mountain. As soon as you leave base camp, it's usually at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you go through what's known as the Khumbu Icefall, and it's notoriously dangerous and challenging.
I feel like all of these booby traps are leading up to the ultimate booby trap, just climbing the mountain.
That's your first booby trap, and it is surreal. It's like a 7-hour icy obstacle course where anyone that's followed Everest has seen people walking over the ladders in their crampons with a crevasse beneath them. Well, that happens. I've done that. And you're climbing ice walls and down ice walls, and all the while, that this is the bottom of a massive glacier, and it's moving. It's constantly moving and breaking and changing. So you're trying to get through this thing as fast as you can. But even fast is 7 hours of being in this ice fall. And so when you make that, you get up on top, and you're in a snowfield then, and you go up to Camp 1, which is probably another 2 hours from there. We spent one night at Camp 1, and then you go to Camp 2, which is about a 4 or 5 hour trek up to Camp 2. Pretty straightforward on a snowfield. And the first time we went up, we spent a couple days at Camp 2, trekked up to Camp 3, to the base of Camp 3. It's called the Lhotse Face. So Camp 3 is located basically on a sheer ice wall. And to get up to it, you have to climb straight up this ice wall all day long. And you get up there, and that's where your campsite is. So the first time up, the first rotation, we went to the base of the ice wall. We turned, we came out, we went back down to base camp. We went all the way, my smaller group went all the way back out to a village called Dingboshe, and we rested for 4 or 5 days. And
village meaning people live up there?
Oh, yeah, there are villages all along the way. And so when you're trekking in, at the end of every day, you're staying in a village. And
we think we have it tough.
Yeah, but you know what? They are
probably a lot happier than we are.
They are a peaceful, happy people. They've lived their entire lives there. They're some of the kindest people you'll ever see. I was blown away by the Sherpas that live in the Everest region, the way they go about doing their jobs, the way they treat you as a guest. They're pretty amazing.
Well, you would think that they have a great respect for Mother Nature, if nothing else. And they see how, precious life is. And they probably see a lot of people who are reaching dreams or wrestling with something that come out to do something as grand as climbing that. So there's probably a lot of compassion, too, for those that are coming to trek the mountain.
That's correct. And the climbing and tourism industry is big for them. They can earn, in 2 months, they can earn as much of wages as they can earn the rest of the year. So, and they too were affected by COVID. I mean, they spent a year of no tourism, and then it looked like even the following year, the year I was there, you didn't have the trekkers there. You had the climbers, but the trekkers weren't there. So, they were caught up in this as well.
So how many camps are there?
Yeah, there's base camp, there's Camp 1, Camp 2. And there's a story in Camp 2. The second rotation, when we got to Camp 2, we got stuck there, and I'll tell you about that. Camp 2 is at 22,000 feet. Then you go up to Camp 3, it's probably about 25,000 feet on the ice wall. Then Camp 4 is 26,000 feet, and that's as high as I made it. I made it to Camp 4.
Can you help us understand how high that is?
It's high. Denali, the highest mountain in North America, is 20,000 feet. So, Mount Rainier, which is a beautiful mountain outside of Seattle, is 14,000 feet.
So that's taller than anything here on U.S. soil.
Right.
Big deal.
Yeah.
So what happened at Camp 2, or what happened where you had to make some tough decisions?
So first rotation, we come back out to base camp. We go back down to Dingboche, and we're starting hearing rumors about COVID showing up. Well, we already knew it was in India, and it's crossed over into Nepal and making its way up the valley, and we're hearing about it.
It's literally making its way up the mountain.
Yeah, that's how contagious COVID is. It's unbelievable, and no one over there had their vaccines. So that becomes a very real worry. Some of the expeditions are even shutting down and going home, and it was kind of left up. At this point, the Nepalese government wasn't getting involved. They were leaving it up to the expeditions to make their decision. But when we came back out to Dingboche, it was pretty much a ghost town, and you could tell that COVID was making its way up and very much affecting the region. So we spent 4 days there, went back up to base camp, which is about a 7-hour trek back up. And our expedition, and this is where some of the things that were decided get a little questionable, but our expedition decided to send us up to Camp 2. For a long time, for a week, we'd been watching the weather patterns, and the weather was supposed to be good at the summit on about the 22nd. And I think because of COVID coming into the area, they sent us on up to Camp 2, and we ended up being there for 8 days. The first of 2 cyclones blew out of India, blew into the area, and a rainstorm down low is a snowstorm up high. So for 8 days at 22,000 feet.
That's like a snow hurricane.
It is. And we're stuck there. And it's pretty grueling. I mean, 22,000 feet is the elevation.
So what kind of covering do you have? Are you in a tent? Adam, I'm worried about you. Are you in a tent?
Yeah. Well,
you weren't like in a building? I mean, you're like just hanging on with your...
You've got a tent. You've got a sleeping bag that's warm. You've got clothing that's warm. There's a dining tent. But you should be at Camp 2 maybe 2 days, mentally and physically. And normally that's what would have happened. We would have stayed at Camp 2 2 days, went to 3, went to 4, and then summited. That was the plan. So 8 days at 2 to let the cyclone blow through. And then we got the word. You were talking about, okay, it's your turn, go. And that's basically what happened. They said, okay, go. And we went up the mountain. One of the hardest days of my life in the mountains was going up to Camp 3, up that ice wall. It was incredibly challenging. You're going up pretty much up a vertical wall using an ascender, which is a device you attach to a fixed rope. And as you slide the ascender up, and then you step, and then you slide it up and step. And you do that the entire day with a lot of danger. And so we get to 3, spend the night. 3 is on the ice wall, and there's a lot of wall above it. So you worry a lot about what's going on above you, especially when you know it's been snowing a lot. So didn't rest very well at 3. Was happy to get out of there the next morning before daylight, headed to 4. And it took me all day to get, we left at probably 3 in the morning. I got to 4 at 3 in the afternoon. Feeling pretty good, doing pretty well. But 4 is your final stop. From there, the plan was that night we're going to go to the summit. And the summit's 6 to 8 hours away, depending on your climbing speed. And so we're there. And when you get to 4, you can look up and see the top of the world. It's just right there in front of you. But the surprise, I get up there, and I've been hearing from the climbing team that we're going to have 25-mile-per-hour winds. We're having 50 to 70-mile-per-hour winds. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
So get in my tent. The tent's blowing over on top of me. They had been saying we're going to leave out at 8 p.m. that night. That didn't happen because the weather was bad. They waited till midnight and then made the decision to go for the summit at midnight. And I didn't like it. It just, to me, you start wondering about motivations and what's motivating that decision. We've clearly missed the weather opportunity. It's not there. And we're in the death zone. That's known as the death zone. A human being cannot survive up there more than a couple days. So
if you get stuck there because of weather,
yeah.
then,
And we've got Cyclone 2 coming in. It's coming. It's
right.
It's a
and you
day
just
or
went
two
through
away.
an 8-day cyclone.
And number
You're
two
doing
is
the
on
math.
the way. So my decision was I'm going to sleep here tonight. I've confirmed that possibly if the weather improved the next day, we could summit. So once I confirmed that, that was clearly my decision. And so I slept overnight, ran out of oxygen during the middle of the night. And I knew that because my feet started getting extremely cold. And that's what happens. Your limbs start to get very cold when you're not getting enough oxygen. But resupplied the oxygen, felt okay the next day. But the wind's still ripping, the tent's still getting blown apart. And more importantly, my Sherpa, who had summited Mount Everest 4 times, who had 2 little kids at home, didn't want to go. And I could tell he didn't want to go.
Bye, Felicia. We'll pack up and head back down.
And so I'm like, gosh, and he's asking me, like, you want to go down? Or are we going down? And I told him the next morning, I said, okay, I'll tell you at noon. I'm going to make my decision at noon. And I talked to one other Sherpa with experience, and he couldn't tell me if the weather was going to improve.
Yeah.
So I said, let's go.
Let's go.
Down.
And we've got more good things to explore more. But we were talking to explorer Adam Hodges. You're a climber and an explorer, Adam. I'm adding that to your resume because you definitely explore opportunities to at least bring awareness for those living with Parkinson's disease here in Mississippi through your foundation, Ascent For The Cure. So you went off for Mount Everest. You made it to Camp 3 or Camp 4, which was the final destination to the summit. And then you made the tough decision. So walk us through that and getting back home.
So once I decided with my Sherpa that we were coming down, my goal, I had been in danger for many weeks, and my goal was just let's get back down to base camp. So we had talked about it. We went from 4 all the way to 2. We slept a little bit, and early the next morning before daylight, we went from 2 through the Khumbu Icefall to base camp in the relatively safety of base camp.
What is it like when you finally get your feet on solid ground?
I felt super relieved once I got back to base camp.
You mentioned your Sherpa was kind of like, man, I really don't want to do, the final ascent, but I'm here with you. What was he like when you finally said, dude, let's turn around and go back?
I think he was excited. Yes. I think he was like I was. Let's get down the mountain.
Let's get down the mountain, get out of here, live to climb another day, right? And so is there, what's the future for Ascent For The Cure? Because, now you have a mission, something to sort of bring awareness to. I assume Adam's not stopping climbing.
We're going to keep climbing, and possibly do Everest again. I hope so. And if I do have success, the next time I try, it's going to be even sweeter. There's something to be learned from going there and giving it your all and not quite making it. For me, that just means next time we'll get it next time. But the goal is to climb the highest mountain on every continent, and I've climbed 3. So we're looking at a 3 to 5 year plan, with Everest being in that time period. And one of my big partners is the Meridian Regional Airport. There's a great partner and a great airport there in Meridian. They're on board with this. They share my passion for travel and adventure and for supporting this Parkinson's group. So I've met with them, and we're coming up with a plan, but there's no quit in us. We're going to keep moving forward and, keep doing everything we can for Parkinson's and for that local group. But it's just like for them, and I see it all the time. They're going to have good weeks, and they're going to have challenging weeks. They're going to fall down, and, they're going to get up. And so in some ways, not making the summit for whatever reason was a falling down, but it's there. It continues to be there, and I accept the challenge to go back if it works out that way.
And let us add, I hope you don't mind, what's your age?
I'm 57.
You should be proud of that. But I think, that's a message in and of itself, Adam, is that you're never too young. I mean, which I know fitness and taking care of yourself has been part of your journey for a really long time. I mean, I wouldn't recommend couch to Mount Everest. There's no program necessarily for that. But it goes to show that age shouldn't limit you for dreaming really big or doing really extraordinary things. It's just having the right motivation and then the determination to see your way through it.
That's right. And I use, it could be something like a marathon or whatever. I need things on the horizon. It motivates me to be dedicated physically and to work out. And I've worked out my whole life. And, I love to play sports, and being active is a big part of who I am. I couldn't imagine being any other way. But truly, mountain climbing, like the vision of Everest on the horizon, I was able to train at a super high level.
And we'll definitely be keeping up with you here on Good Things, Adam. But if folks want to connect with what you're doing online, can they find you? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, we're on Facebook at Ascent For A Cure, and we also have our own website, ascentforacure.com. People can reach out to me at Anderson Health and Fitness Center, whether it's to talk about mountain climbing or to come by and see our program.
Because it's open to the public, right?
Yeah, it's open to the public, and I'm happy to introduce someone to our Parkinson's program, or if someone wants to start a program elsewhere in the state, I'm happy to support that and help out there.
Because that's the Rock Steady Boxing, which I highly encourage you to go watch some of the YouTube videos, and you will be completely inspired and motivated by those individuals giving it their all in their own way in the gym, fighting back against Parkinson's disease. It's very inspiring to watch them. It makes me want to not hit them, hit a boxing bag. And
have you tried boxing?
I have not.
It's pretty remarkable.
I feel like it would be a really good, stress reliever.
It is. It's fun and a great way to burn calories and get in shape. I mean, my wife's favorite thing to do is box. She's really good at it, and also bringing her up, I want to just thank her for supporting me. She allowed me to leave for 2 months. It wasn't easy for her. She worried about me, and she supports me. I mean, she's already supporting a possible reattempt at Everest. So she's amazing. She said she fell in love with the adventurer that I am, and she just supports me being me.
Well, the next time you're back here on Good Things to talk about your next climb, whatever that may be, please bring her. We'd love to hear what it's like to be married to a weirdo who likes to climb really high places for good reasons. No, this has been an honor. Thank you for your time.